Hello everybody and welcome back for the new VR news. As always, I am Mateo311 and this is your one channel for everything VR related. Today we have some awesome VR game announcements, Forbes magazine has once again failed, and we got some really cool new hardware to check out. If you end up enjoying this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here, consider subscribing. Okay guys, let's get into this. So first up in the game news, we got a teaser trailer for a game called Blastin'. This is from the developers of Angry Birds VR, and it looks to be a one-on-one PvP dueling shooter. There's very little information available on this game, and really not much shown in the teaser. But what we do know is the game will have an assortment of high-tech weapons, and it will require you to be very active. So it looks like we're going to be dodging bullets in some type of neon futuristic world. Next up, we have an amazing release trailer for the game Swords of Gara. Now this game is releasing tomorrow, April 21st in early access. I've been following this title for almost a year, and I will have a first impressions up as soon as possible. Swords of Gara is an online melee fighting game. It has some truly unique weapons, and this is set to be a skill-based fighter. Now the game is simple to pick up, but truly hard to master. Weapons have different pros and cons, and there is a pretty unique sword breaking mechanic, where you must wait for your sword to reform every time you strike a target. Now I know immediate comparisons will be drawn to the game Iron Lights, but I have to say these games are nothing at all alike. This isn't the best comparison, but it's almost like comparing Rec Room to Pavlov. I was actually in a tournament for Swords of Gara this weekend and got my butt handed to me, so stay tuned for my first impressions video. So we also got a launch trailer for Pixel Ripped 1995. Now this is a follow-up to Pixel Ripped 1989, the nostalgia-driven game within a game. So now we're moving into the 90s with some Super Nintendo style games, visiting the local game rental store, and just continuing that nostalgia trip. Pixel Ripped 1989 was a highly rated title and very well received within the VR community. I'm hoping they'll have the same success with Pixel Ripped 1995. So next up, we have two mods for Half-Life Alyx. Now, besides the fact that these mods are just awesome, it's actually a lot more important than that because you have to remember the modding tools have not yet been released for Half-Life Alyx. We've been promised but are yet to receive the official level editor. Now we're also expecting, but not fully promised, the SDK for Source 2. So when these tools release, just imagine the new content we're going to get. Now the first mod is XenThug, which turns Half-Life Alyx into a survival mode, and you'll be battling waves of enemies. The next mod is Wolfenstein Levels for Half-Life Alyx. It's a bit of a nostalgia trip and sort of a gimmick, but it's pretty cool to just play through these old school Wolfenstein levels as Alex Vance. The weapons and enemies will remain from the original Half-Life Alyx game. Links to both of these mods will be in the description. Okay, so last up in the game news, I always try to include something free, and this week we have a VR movie called The Key. Now this is available for the Rift and the Oculus Quest. The Key will carry you through the lucid dreams of a young girl, but something's just quite not right here. So if you're interested in a nice little VR distraction, why not check out this short film? Moving into the software news, if you are a Windows mixed reality owner, you might want to hold off on your Windows updates. Now the insider preview for the May 2020 Windows patch currently has some known Windows mixed reality bugs. Now there is still time for Microsoft to correct this issue before the patch is rolled out to everyone, and this is basically a public service announcement. If you are a Windows mixed reality owner, before you get that May update, you might want to just look into it to make sure it's patched, or if your Windows mixed reality headset stops working after this update, you know you're gonna have to roll back. So moving into other terrible update news, Forbes magazine has released another horrible Half-Life Alyx article. Once again, it is highly misinformed and borderline clickbait. Now this article on Half-Life Alyx is clearly written by someone who is not very familiar with VR. Now the article is titled "The Biggest Problems with Half-Life Alyx," and the first sentence goes on to say, "Half-Life Alyx made me sick." literally. Now, this is not going to be me defending Half-Life Alyx or VR in general. This is just going to be me pointing out the obvious disparity between this writer's opinion and the opinion of the VR community. Now, one thing I will say about VR and motion sickness, games should try to dummy-proof the experience for new users. Just like anytime you play a new flat-screen game, you generally start with a tutorial that tells you simple things like the left stick will move your character forward and backwards. Now the experienced player goes, yeah, I know how to do that, let's go. However, you never know when it's someone's first experience in a game. So when it comes to VR, locomotion settings should be explained in this same repetitive manner. Hi, you've just enabled smooth turning. Just so you know, this tends to make people nauseous. Now, I have over 1,000 hours in VR, and I'll tell you, I still can't use smooth turning. It won't make me sick, but it does make me uncomfortable. Now, 95% of people either have no motion sickness or eventually overcome VR motion sickness. There is a small percentage of people that are forced to use high comfort settings and teleportation is their only option, and there's an even smaller subset of people who just can't adjust to VR and it's really not for them. So to jump into Half-Life Alyx, immediately change some settings, and then get nauseous, well, that's kind of on you. If you are an experienced VR gamer, you know the second you experience any nausea, you stop and do not return to the game for hours. It is not something you can muscle through, and if you try to, you're gonna make it even worse. But putting motion sickness aside, the author continues to show their ignorance by referring to specific mechanics as shortcomings. Immersive elements like using the gravity gloves and actively reloading your weapon is described as excessively tedious. The author even goes as far to complain about aiming with motion controllers. Apparently, they can't hit moving targets. I'm sorry, but you're missing the entire point of VR. The gravity gloves are not a gimmick to cover up VR shortcomings. You can go the flat screen route where you just walk over ammo and automatically pick it up. That is not what VR gamers want, and that's not what VR is meant for. Actively reloading is a skill-based VR mechanic. There's nothing else that feels quite like this, and it is so immersive. I'm sorry you find reloading so tedious and your aim with the motion controller is terrible, but you really should not be covering VR games. This is the type of clueless crap to turn people away from trying VR games. And honestly, I can't stand for it anymore. Alright guys, let's make things a little bit more positive and move into the hardware news. Now our first item is the new ET controllers, which actually just reached their Kickstarter funding goal. Now these appear to be Valve Index competitors, as they do provide full finger tracking. The developers have stated that this design may not be the final product. Currently it has no additional buttons, making me skeptical on how compatible this will be with all modern games. They have mentioned the possibility of mapping specific gestures to actual key presses, but with VR controllers finally starting to standardize, I feel like this is definitely going to be an issue. At the same time, the lack of a thumbstick is a hard pass for me. I hated the trackpad of the Vive Wands, and I am completely unwilling to go back. At the same time, it does not look like the ET controllers will be priced much cheaper than the Valve Index controllers. While the Kickstarter prices won't necessarily match retail prices, they have to be at least remotely similar not to insult people who backed you on Kickstarter. So I'm all for innovation and new VR accessories, but I'm not quite sure where the ET controllers will fit in. Next up, we're checking out a product that there is a definite need for, and that is the VR ears. The VR ears are an audio replacement system for existing VR headsets, specifically targeting the PlayStation, the Oculus Quest, and the Rift S. A Kickstarter campaign is launching tomorrow, April 21st for this product. It does come from Rebuff Reality, a company that is already making successful VR accessories. The VR ears are similar to the speakers of the Valve Index. They are not headphones, they are off-ear speakers that hang next to your head. Many people find this to be an ideal solution because the headphones on the Deluxe Audio Strap or some other headsets will actually move out of place when you move your head in game. Off-ear speakers also tend to feel a little bit more comfortable because you just have one less object making contact with your head. And when it comes to the Oculus Quest and the Rift S, there is a definite need to replace the stock audio solution. The in-strap speakers are basically just acceptable. Bass is almost non-existent, and it's almost as if it's an afterthought. It's most likely going to be a while before these are available, but I do plan on having a review ready to go for you guys when the time comes. Okay everybody, that was today's new VR news. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead, give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments what you think about these products, and I will see you guys on next time.